I always try and be very transparent and straightforward. What we are talking about today is a combination of truths and rumors along with things that have happened, okay? So there's going to be some leaks. There's going to be some confirmations of things that we already know have happened that point towards other things. And then, of course, there's going to be just rumors that I don't want to say are unsubstantiated, but they're just unproven. Konami is something that if you've followed this channel for a while, you'll know I love the video games of, but really dislike the corporate new age attitude of. There's a lot of really interesting background and lore on Konami if you want to go back and dig through the archives, as Obi-Wan Kenobi would say, and look over, basically the internet, YouTube. There have been a lot of video game and internet historians that have covered this stuff better than I have, and there's a lot of it. Basically, the TLDR of it, and I know I'm going to simplify this very, very much, it's just my opinion on what happened, is that Konami was a company that got into gaming. They did more and more and more, and they ended up with a lot of beloved franchises, but then over time, they started finding other things that made them more money. Things like pachinko machines, which is essentially gambling, slot machines, very popular in Japan. And also, of course, mobile games. And then people, in my opinion, like Hideo Kojima, these big figureheads who had a lot of ideas, but whose games were very expensive to make, they became a bit of a liability in Konami's eyes, who then started to push out a lot of their creative people. It started even before that happened, before the canning of PT. It actually happened way back with the original Team Silent, as slowly they kind of moved on to other things instead of being even enticed to work at Konami. And then Konami started shipping Silent Hill out to anyone who would make a game with it, which is one reason why Silent Hill became so up and down in quality after Silent Hill 4. Now, why do I say this? Because Silent Hill, Metal Gear, Castlevania, the TMNT games, the sky is the limit on things that Konami owns that people actually care about, that are beloved in the gaming industry, and it does seem like Konami is possibly starting to care a little bit about the preservation of and possible creation, I say possible, of new games in those franchises yet again. There have been Konami reports forever, and you're definitely going to hear me clicking around because I have to go back and forth between a bunch of different sources. They're going to be linked in the description down below under the sources section, but Konami has been starting to actually show a care in video games again. They teased a new video game from a world-loved series at Tokyo Game Show 2022, which is very, very interesting, and they released their lineup for Tokyo Game Show 2022, including a new unannounced game. The presentation for this game will last 45 minutes and will feature voice actor Yuki Kaji as a guest to represent fans of a world-loved series title, but we don't know exactly what that will be yet. A lot of people have pointed out it could be Silent Hill, Castlevania, Metal Gear Solid, or any of the following. As pointed out actually on Eurogamer, using Kaji is interesting because he's appeared in things like JRPGs like Shin Megami Tensei, Fire Emblem. He's in Hyrule Warriors as Link. So he's a known, I guess I would say, voice actor, but he's not a known Konami aficionado or a known Konami voice actor. One thing that's interesting, by the way, is that there have been a lot of different things leaked according to all these leakers online. It's interesting because there's all this stuff with the delisted Metal Gear games being set to return, apparently, 2 different digital storefronts. There was a tweet from the official Metal Gear account celebrating the 35th anniversary of the series, where they said, "We ask for your patience as preparations are underway to make these temporarily removed titles available again," which likely actually refers to Metal Gear Solid 2 and 3. Those were removed from digital stores last year due to licensing issues. It's worth noting for things that Konami has actually released in recent years, there has been stuff that they've been releasing. There were things like the Anniversary Collection Arcade Classics, Contra Rogue Corps in 2019, Yu-Gi-Oh! Legacy of the Duelist has been kind of back and forth with releases for a couple of years now. Super Bomberman R got released on 2017, and then of course Castlevania Anniversary Collection, and then there was also the stuff with Castlevania Advanced Collection coming out. So it's worth noting with all of that, that Konami has been allowing some of their stuff to come back, get collections, get re-released, and we saw that with the TMNT Cowabunga collection as well, which I haven't picked up yet, but I'd like to get very soon because it has even things like Turtles in Time in it, which was hard to get for a while. So when it comes down to it, things are coming back from Konami, and we do have the Metal Gear Solid return to digital storefronts basically confirmed. And of course, there are all of the leaks. There are so many rumors that Konami's returning to Silent Hill with multiple new games. One of those is supposedly a remake of Silent Hill 2, another being an episodic video game, whatever that means, series, and then supposedly a proper new mainline game, whatever that may be. But those are just rumors for now, so we don't really know. But there have been more and more leaks coming out as well. Andy Robinson, who's actually the editor at VGC News, and of course an ex-Platonic writer, he actually has been getting some leaks going with this as well, where he talked about on August 31st that he's heard from several people that a Silent Hill reveal may be sooner than he suggested in his story that he actually had written. As with all reporting on timings, I wouldn't take that as gospel, but fans possibly won't have to wait much longer. And then of course we get to what's going on with the Metal Gear Solid franchise, because there's been a lot of rumors around that for a while. And here's the thing, there's been rumors around Konami things for a long time. So if you're like me, you're probably not sitting here on the edge of your seat, super excited, really expecting things. But what's odd about some of these rumors around Silent Hill and Metal Gear is that they've been going for quite a while, and we just haven't seen anything. When it comes to Metal Gear Solid, though, them bringing back the games to digital storefronts is actually a good... It's like I don't know what you'd say, like a good first step in showing that they care about those games at least somewhat, because of course it's a lot of like the ability to make money for doing very little. But if they didn't care at all, right, if it wasn't worth a fraction of their time because they could make that in a day off pachinko, of course they wouldn't even bother to put it back. So it's good to see that that is happening, and it does feed a little bit into what's supposedly going on with the rest of the Metal Gear Solid series. Supposedly, according to a lot of these leaks, which were first actually reported in October of 2021, so this is way back, actually reported by Andy Robinson at VGC News, they are supposedly remastering Metal Gear Solid 1 through 3 and remaking Metal Gear Solid 3. It's odd to me that we're seeing like a remake of Metal Gear Solid 3 and a remake of Silent Hill 2, if these things are happening, but not the other ones right now. Like, you would think that what you'd want to do if you were Konami is kind of pull a Capcom, sort of go in order right down the line, remake your stuff with essentially updated gameplay, updated graphics, but the same story, and then just bank off of it, right? You're remaking MGS 1 or 2 or 3, and you just kind of go down the line, remake them with essentially the same gameplay for the most part, same conversations, maybe you expand a little bit or change something here or there, and then you have a game. It's not simple, but it's a lot more simple than needing a creative director to create everything from the ground up. You have a framework to work off of. So it's a little odd to me that they would be going with Metal Gear Solid 3, and then of course Silent Hill 2. Silent Hill 2 I can at least understand somewhat, because that is actually one of those games where it's like a lot of people never played any other game in the Silent Hill franchise, they just played 2. It's sort of the Arkham City of the collection, or the Assassin's Creed 2 of the franchise, where like it was a lot of people's experience with the franchise and their main one. So I can sort of understand that, but it's a bit odd to jump in at that point without playing 1 or without doing anything like that. Now, this doesn't mean that they couldn't still remake those games or remaster those games or whatever, but it's interesting to see. And I think fans of Metal Gear Solid will notice that the 4th game is actually excluded from this list of things that are being remastered. That game is so reliant on the cell infrastructure of the PlayStation 3. It's really interesting how it works in terms of how that game was developed and what it actually does, because it does push that infrastructure of the PS3 very hard in terms of what it is capable of doing. It's sort of like what we see from Nintendo. When you see Nintendo make a Nintendo game, right? When you see Mario Odyssey and you play it, you're like, wow, this is running on the Switch? this runs really well. This is incredible. And it's because they're kind of like sort of milking every last little detail and pixel and ability of that console to do something special, right? A lot of times we don't see that anymore with consoles and games because things are multi-platform. They come out everywhere and it's basically like, oh, well, it runs 5 FPS faster on the PlayStation or it runs 10 FPS faster on Xbox. We don't really see quite as much of that, I guess, interesting milking of these tiny little abilities of consoles. Metal Gear Solid 4 was very much in the boat of doing that, and because of relying so much on that, it's even been really difficult for a lot of people to get working on emulators like PCSX3, although it's finally coming along very, very well now. It took a lot of years to get to where it was, and that was fans who were very, very dedicated to getting it to run. So I'm not sure if or when we would actually see that, and if it would happen, because it's really reliant on that cell processor, but it is possible. Nothing's impossible. And on a final note, because of that, Konami actually did sort of say that there's even a possibility of a 2000s TMNT, I guess you'd say, collection, because there was actually a question asked about this the other day, which I thought was interesting, on the 2000s Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles games, which I thought were very fun. They're sort of like a 2.5D style of games based off the early 2000s, really kick-ass cartoon series, which I love. And they actually spoke to Nintendo Everything about whether or not we could see that TMNT collection someday. Konami producer Charles Murakami actually said, according to that, "Never say never. I've waited decades for a TMNT collection, and seeing other fans share my desire to see this project come together is one of the greatest moments in my career. Although sometimes the stars have to align for a project to come together, I'm encouraged when you see fans nudging those stars into place." So I really do think this is something that's interesting because people have been asking for a lot of these collections for a long time, the Cowabunga collection, because Murakami did say that collection, it actually came about because fans were vocal about wanting to be able to access those old TMNT games again. Castlevania, Contra Anniversary collections, etc., all of those are really because fans pushed for them. So it would be interesting to be able to see TMNT again. And I didn't mention Castlevania very much here because I have played a little bit of Castlevania, but as of recording this, I'm definitely not the aficionado expert on that. I'm much more familiar with TMNT, Silent Hill, and Metal Gear Solid. I love all of those to death. But when it comes to Castlevania, my main experience personally is Super Castlevania 4, which I loved. I did do a Let's Play of that over with one of my friends on the Let's Play channel, so that channel, Degenerate Plays, is in the description down below if you want to check that out. But I did want to say with that, there are also a lot of rumors of them reviving that series. The thing is, in what way has yet to be confirmed. There's not really anything solid to talk about that, unlike Metal Gear Solid. But it's supposedly coming back if these things are true. It remains to be seen. I'm skeptical, but I will say that at the very least, as these Konami old games become available, I personally am going to scoop them up, because even though Konami is now known as pretty money grubbing and pretty much the company that kind of gave gamers the finger and walked away, the old stuff they made is mostly really good, and I still think is worth your time and attention. I understand a lot of people aren't going to want to give Konami money because of the way they behaved. I will say with that though, that for me, someone who loves these franchises, loves seeing them, I would personally like to support when I see old games that I love that are hard to access now come back, because I want to see them around for future people, including myself, but even people after me to enjoy easily, in the coming years. So let me know what you think in the comments down below. I'm very interested to hear your thoughts. To me, it looks like Konami is starting to see a little bit of potential in the gaming industry again, and a reason to care about it. I hope that the reason for that isn't just endless microtransactions and all kinds of garbage. I hope that the sales of things like Cowabunga Collection do well, along with the sales of the Castlevania collections and other stuff, to kind of drive home the point that people like these games. They want to play them and they want to be able to access them. I wanted to go through and thank a lot of my patrons today. It's been very difficult on YouTube the last probably year, I would say, because it's just ridiculously complex to be able to grow the channel, keep talking about stuff, keep making things, and do various video projects with how much YouTube has kind of snubbed the channel a little bit. So I appreciate that we're finally growing again. I appreciate you guys who are out there, and I also appreciate my patrons very, very much. So I wanted to say a thank you to the Dark Nightmare, who's a personal friend of mine. So is Seth, of course, as always. We have Mark, Sean, Javaris, Jonah, Colin, Jason, Nicholas, Vince, Arasan, and Gregular. So thank you all very, very much. I appreciate you so, so much. You're helping keep the channel going and really helping us go through and just keep knocking it out of the park, I hope. So thank you very much for being here. Have a fantastic day. If you enjoyed today's video, please be sure to leave a like, subscribe. Let me know what you think in the comments down below about everything we talked about. And as always, everyone, stay shui.